Good morning, Warzone kids. It's a cold day on the trail of the Western Lands. It was -7 in my driveway this morning when I pulled out. 4 degrees now. We've got a lot of microclimates in Vermont. When it's real cold outside, the specific temperature where you are depends a lot on, are you on the side of a hill? Are you in a valley? Where are you at exactly? But it's 4 degrees right now, and it looks to be a fairly clear day. Warzone kids, that's my term for those of us like myself. I'm a child sex abuse survivor who grew up in an environment that was like a low-grade guerrilla war against your psyche, against your soul. More like a war than it was a supportive nursery where you just got what you needed. And I think of our psyche, our soul. I'm a human being and I have a soul. I don't mean anything mystical by that. That's just the word I use for me, for the part of me that's talking to you right now, whatever that is. I think of it as a Jenga tower. Like at the beginning of the game, it's a big solid block, and each bit of harm, abuse, and neglect takes the blocks out of the bottom of that bigger block and puts them on top. It makes the whole thing less stable. And by the time you get to be an adult, if you're a Warzone kid, your Jenga tower might be tall and shaky and ready to fall down. And in fact, if you're anything like me, I'm a recovering addict and bulimic. And as an adult, I live with borderline personality disorder. If you're anything like me, your Jenga tower's probably fallen down. If you've been to 12-step meetings, they probably call that hitting bottom. But you may have hit bottom without being an addict or anything like that. You can just hit bottom. Your psyche can just fall apart. And the task of us Warzone kids is to live life right now. I think of life as a pilgrimage to the trail to the Western Lands, on the trail to the Western Lands. The Western Lands is what I think of as a place of peace and wholeness where I learn and become what I am. And when your Jenga tower falls down, well, it's sad and it's upsetting. But it's also easier to deal with your Jenga tower because you don't have to worry about it falling down because it already done happened. Right? Well, here we are. In the last couple of videos, I talked a lot about the wood between the worlds and narcissism. And if you're interested in that, go back and watch those. It's a 3-part series. And this one here, I'm going to talk about borderline and narcissism from the inside and the outside. And if you have someone in your life with borderline or narcissism, send it to them if you feel like it. Maybe they'll see something in here that they can relate to, and maybe they'll feel less alone. And if you have somebody in your life with borderline or narcissism, maybe you'll see something in this that might be helpful to you. I don't know. And if you are the one struggling with borderline or narcissism, then maybe you can see something in here that you can relate to. This is me. I'm just a pilgrim on the trail to the Western Lands. I'm trying to share my experience. I got no magic. But I'm a volunteer circle keeper with an organization called Hidden Water Circle, and it facilitates healing circles by and for those affected by child sex abuse. And my experience in there has been that the most powerful thing other people can do for me is just share their experience with me. And the most powerful thing I can do to them is listen to their experience and share my experience with them. That's the most powerful thing I can do for myself, is share my experience with another person in order to be understood, and listen to them in order to understand them. To get to what I want to say about borderline and narcissism, we got to start with Kill Bill. Quentin Tarantino picture. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a 51-year-old Gen Xer from Oklahoma City. And one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had in a movie theater, when I was 16 or so, I had a car I could drive. And I washed dishes at the Olive Garden, had a little bit of pocket money, and I could go to the movies. And man, did I love going to the movies. And I went to a double feature of movies I had no idea what to expect, but I saw a double feature of The Crying Game and Reservoir Dogs. And that was a hell of a double feature. And one of those movies has aged much better than the other one. But I saw Reservoir Dogs without having any idea what to expect. I didn't know it was a Quentin Tarantino picture. And man, did it blow my mind. Loved it. And I've loved just about everything Quentin Tarantino has all the movies he's made since then. But I love Kill Bill, and the scene that's in my mind is when Beatrix gets buried alive in that coffin. That's the most powerful sequence in terms of psychological metaphor that I can think of at the moment. Unless I start talking about vampire movies. But Beatrix gets buried alive, 6 foot underground in a coffin. And she's done spent her time on a mountain with old Pai Mei. And Pai Mei taught her the 1-inch punch, where you can concentrate all your life force into a punch at something just 1 inch away. And she uses that 1-inch punch to bust out of that coffin. And she busts out of that coffin, and then she has to clamber up through the dirt to make it up back to the cosmos, back to the clear air where she can stand up, walk around, and get back to living her life. Now, I love that. And I've got a personal hypothesis that the greatest distance in the cosmos is 1 inch. Because that's about how big our eyeballs are. About 1 inch. And the greatest distance as a human being that you can travel in terms of your psyche is the 1 inch from the inside of your eyeballs where you live to the outside of your eyeballs where everyone you know lives and where the cosmos is. Now, you are part of the cosmos. I'm about to sneeze. Now, that's funny. Maybe my psyche made me sneeze because I had a friend who's an ophthalmology tech, and I sneezed one time, and I contained my sneeze. And she said, Ben, don't hold in your sneeze. That creates a great increase in intraocular pressure. That means the pressure inside your eyeballs. Now, that's a great metaphor. I'm going to use it right now. The 1 inch that's the greatest distance for the human psyche to travel, as far as I can tell, is the 1 inch from the inside of your eyeballs to the outside of your eyeballs. You live on the inside. You see yourself from the inside. You see your whole life. You got memories. You got mental formations. You got the whole schmear. On the outside of your eyeballs, that's where everyone is. That's where everyone you know is. And other people experience you from the outside. All they see is what you do with your body, the words you say with your mouth, the things you do with your hands and feet, and the things you do to them with your body. What you do in the world. That's all anyone else can see. They know, if they're thoughtful at all, they know that there's something on the inside of those eyeballs, but that ain't really their problem. Their problem is what you do on the outside. And when you live, this is a problem for all of us, but if you're a war zone kid, many of us, many child sex abuse survivors, many war zone kids have things that, if you use diagnostic language, are called personality disorders. And I would say, if you want a way to identify someone who is a war zone kid, look for people that have personality disorders, because that's how they got them. You can see a couple earlier videos I did on this. This is just me talking. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a human being. I have a soul. But I would tell you that my basic guess is that different personality disorders are just names to call different kind of shapes of Jenga towers. Different kind of childhoods, different kinds of abuse, harm, and neglect create different kind of childhoods, different kind of Jenga towers. Because our Jenga tower is created to help us survive our childhoods. Your Jenga tower, think your Jenga tower as a key. Think of it as a three-dimensional key. That key is in exactly the shape it took your psyche to unlock the secret of how to live through your childhood. Think about that. Now, the pressure, when you have a childhood, when you got a key that's shaped like borderline, when you got a borderline shaped Jenga tower, when you got a narcissism shaped Jenga tower, that's going to build up a lot of what my friend called intraocular pressure. Because that key was there to help you live in that childhood and helped you survive. Give thanks to that key. If it weren't for that Jenga tower, you wouldn't be here. Okay? Now, as an adult, you got to live in the rest of the world. And the rest of the world ain't the war zone that you grew up in. The rest of the world is just the rest of the world. It may be a war zone, but it's not the war zone you grew up in. All human beings, in my way of thinking, have a Jenga tower, and they're all kind of shaped like a key formed by their childhood. But if you had a war zone childhood, that key of your Jenga tower grew up in a very specific way to deal with that war zone, right? And it can. It got you through that war zone right here today. But you got to live in the rest of the world. So that's what I want to talk about. A little bit about what my Jenga tower, what a borderline Jenga tower can look like from the inside. It's not everyone. This is me talking. Just me. I'm sharing my experience of a guy living with a war zone psyche that you can call borderline personality disorder, if you want to use that language. It's really helpful shorthand. My experience of love as a child was that it was a bait and switch, uniformly. First came love, and then came harsh emotional cruelty, emotional abuse, emotional harm, betrayal. I had a mother who suffered from her own war zone childhood, and I saw her from the outside. That's why this stuff matters to me. When I did something that she didn't like, she would instantly flip on me, split, to use BPD language. She would split on me, send me out to the far side of the moon, outside of her love and affection. And I was a child, I had a strong bond with my maternal organism, and I would cravenly crawl to get it back. Shamingly, humiliatingly, cravenly crawl back and do whatever I had to do to get some simulacra of kindness from my maternal organism. And it was always the same. To this very day, you can rent human kindness from her minute by minute, but you're only going to keep it till you do something that flips her switch. And I just learned how to live in that world as little as possible. So, but on the inside, I have a psyche informed by that, shaped by that. And when I experience kindness and affection, I'm instantly on edge. I do not live in the throes of this, but it's still the psyche I have. I practice Zen and I live in the here and now, and I'm aware that these thoughts and impulses and mental formations in my head don't have to run my life. But that's still what they are. I haven't swapped out my psyche for someone else's. So for me, whenever I experience kindness and affection, I experience it as step one in a trick. That's the bait, the trap comes next. When I believe it, all I'm doing is putting my foot in the trap, and the jaws are going to clamp down on it because here comes the betrayal and the pain, inevitably, right? That's my experience on the inside. And when I'm living in that dynamic, I'm never disappointed. Because when I'm living in that, I'm looking for the betrayal. I'm expecting it, and I'm looking for it. Because that's the shape my Jenga tower is, shaped by my psyche. I'm looking for that betrayal. And I know that bait, I can't see the trap. It seems like there's just some good food laying around. It seems like that's just love and affection. That's what it seems like, but that's what it always seems like, Pilgrim. It always seems like there ain't no strings attached. It always seems like that's good, clean food, but it's always bait, and there's always a trap. That's what my psyche wants to tell me. That's the shape of Jenga tower that I have. So as soon as I see something that I don't like, I get out of there. I yank my foot out of that trap. As soon as I see something that I don't like, I yank my foot out of that trap because I know them jaws are going to come closing down. I split on them before they can hurt me. See? Like a fox. Fox is a wily critter, and they're hard to trap. Like coyotes. Pick whichever one you like. Coyotes are wily critters. Wile E. Coyote, that's why they call them that. They're hard to trap. And they're very suspicious of anything they see that looks like good food. They'll sniff around it, and they'll walk around it. And if they see anything they don't like, they split. And that's a word you know well if you know anything at all about borderline personality disorder. Splitting. It means a bunch of things. In fact, I would say it means everything that word means. You split in half, black and white. Yeah, I thought it was a nice treat, and then I saw the truth that it was only bait. You split. I split. I get out of there. I'm gone. You can't fool me. You can't fool me with your nasty fermented sardines. I know it looks like a tasty snack, but that's just bait. There's got to be steel jaws around here somewhere waiting to close around my leg. There's got to be a snare I'm fixing to put my head in. I split. I'm going to get out of there. And it's also split like a banana split, like a treat. Because whenever it happens, there's a certain feeling inside. Good. I saw the jaws and I got out of there. It happened again. Like a sucker, I thought that this time that treat might just be a treat. This time I thought that love and affection might just be love and affection. I thought it might be this time, but something inside me knew it wasn't. Something inside me knew that it was just a bait. And I almost took it, but I'm wily. I'm smart. I saw that betrayal coming a mile away, and I got out of there, and I'll live to fight another day. I will live to learn another day. I thought I found my Cersei, but it was just Brianna. I'm swapping over to Game of Thrones. If you wanted to find a model of love that fits this guy, Jaime and Cersei from Game of Thrones, that'd be the one you wanted. Spectacular, intense, not totally acceptable, doomed to failure, Jaime and Cersei. That would be the model of what this guy recognizes and feels as love. Other things just don't feel like much of anything. Everything else is kind of like casual workplace acquaintance. That ain't really true, but I'll leave it at that. Even in terms of my platonic friends, you don't call it that. I'm kind of a one at a time kind of guy. I don't like being around groups of people that much. Feels like a threat. I got to be entertaining and charming and, whatever passes for that. I like one person at a time. But it's all of a piece, you see. That's what's happening on the inside for this guy when I split. It's a banana split. Yeah, it happened again, but I'm smart. I saw it coming and I got out of there first. I split before them jaws could come together and grab my leg. I thought that it might be Cersei this time, but it was just Brienne of Tarth. Nice enough, but she ain't no Cersei. I'm out of there. Like that. Now that's what's happening on the inside. That's my story about the cosmos that those parts of my psyche create. And they'll create it over and over again because that's what they're looking for. What's that mean from the outside? Well, from the outside, it means you're dealing with a guy that's going to treat you like Cersei. Shine the light of my affection and my intensity and my love and all that. Shine that light on you in the hopes that you are Cersei. I'm kind of keeping this restricted to romantic relationships because that's what has resonance for this guy. Because I was caused a great deal of harm. Sexual, emotional, psychological, some physical, by my maternal organism. And a woman. And so all that pain and betrayal and love just gets transferred to adult women that I have romantic feelings about. So I take all of that, shine that light, turn all my intensity on, and then as soon as something happens I don't like, otherwise known as human conflict, or disappointed expectations, or anything that happens I don't like, I respond like it's a betrayal. Because that whole thing with the trap and the bait is what's happening on the inside of my eyeballs. But on the outside of my eyeballs, what's that mean for anyone else? They get invested in me, they give feelings to me, they feel sparks and a bond, because these things generally, if I feel sparks, the sparks are usually there. The other person's usually feeling them as well. Seems to be how sparks work, everyone can see them. And then something happens, something invisible. You cross some invisible line, you commit some invisible infraction. And now we're back to the trap metaphor. You spring that trap. The trap is sprung. I sprung the trap. There you go. That's a better way to put it. It is not the person on the outside that springs the trap on me. I spring the trap on myself. I spring the trap by deciding it's a trap. By looking for a trap, I create the trap and then I spring it. What in the world is that like for people on the outside of my eyeballs? Good Lord. What's that like for them? Well, one thing it's like for them is like what it's like for me as a child. Love and affection. And then they get cast out to the far side of the moon. Love and affection, and then banishment and pain. That's what's happening there on the inside of my eyeballs. I'm feeling like it's a trap. I'm getting out of the trap. I spring the trap. I create the trap, then I put my foot in it, and then I spring it. And then I try to get out before the jaws close. What's happening on the outside is someone invests feelings into me. They feel some kind of bond with me. They see some kind of sparks. They see something interesting. And then I spring the trap. And they get caught in it. I split. I get out of the trap. I'm gone. I got a borderline psyche. It will just come unhooked. They get caught in the trap. I spring the trap and it catches them in pain and betrayed. They're the ones that have been betrayed, not me. I just experienced, I just did my thing. I'm over there eating a banana split. I got out of that one. And the person that cared about me, they're the ones that get caught in the trap. What do you think about that? That sucks. I'm over there eating a banana split, glad that I got out. They're a betrayer and I saw it before. I just barely caught the edge of my toenail. That's all I lost. And they get caught in the trap of getting invested in me, and then they get caught, they get the jaws around their neck. Because I threw them out into the outside world. Banished them to the far side of the moon. Caused them the same kind of pain that I was caused as a child. Ouch. Well, in the Wood Between the Worlds videos I did, that's the pool of water that I got to get through. Because if I don't want to go to my death, recreating that dynamic over and over again, I got to see it and accept it for what it is. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? The inside of the eyeballs and the outside of the eyeballs. That's the greatest distance in the world, and that's what I mean by that. To see what I'm doing on the inside and how that matches up with what's happening on the outside. That's the greatest distance in the world for this guy. The 1-inch punch. And as long as I stay in that coffin, I'm already dead. As long as I'm living in that dynamic, I may as well stay in that coffin, because that's where I am, dead, 6 foot underground. Think of that. Life is finding the ability for that 1-inch punch, so you can get out of the inside of your eyeballs and claw through the dirt and make it up to the clear air where rosy-fingered dawn is coming up over the horizon. And the snow I see in front of me is a very, very pale blue this morning. It's overcast. The snow is pale blue. Rosy-fingered dawn is coming up, Pilgrim. It's cold outside. And we got a lot of miles to go. And we got a lot to talk about. Let's walk them together and have a chat. It's a beautiful day on the trail, Pilgrim, and daylight's burning. Let's get a move on.